They used my driveway as a shortcut, laughing, "It saves us time." After asking nicely and being mocked, I installed a security gate. They showed up furious, shouting, "You're trapping us in." I smiled, "No, I'm keeping you out." Their outrage was music to my ears. I never thought moving into my dream home would lead to such a mess. I'm a 45-year-old software engineer, and after years of saving, I finally bought a cozy 2-story house in a quiet suburb of Atlanta, Georgia. The house came with a long driveway that wrapped around the side, leading to a detached garage in the back. It felt perfect until I realized that my driveway had become the neighborhood's favorite shortcut. At first, I didn't think much of it. A few people cutting through now and then didn't seem like a big deal. But soon it became a constant stream. Morning, noon, and night, neighbors were walking, biking, and even driving through my property to save time. They were using my driveway to cut from one street to another, avoiding a longer route around the block. One evening, as I was unloading groceries, a group of teenagers casually strolled through, laughing and chatting. I decided it was time to say something. "Hey there," I called out, trying to sound friendly. "I know it's convenient, but this is my private property. I'd appreciate it if you could use the sidewalk instead." One of the boys smirked. "Come on, man. It's just a shortcut. Everyone does it." Another chimed in, "Yeah, it saves us time." Their dismissive attitude rubbed me the wrong way, but I didn't want to escalate things. "I understand, but it's still my property. Please respect that." They walked away, laughing and making jokes at my expense. I sighed, hoping that would be the end of it. It wasn't. Despite my polite request, the traffic through my driveway didn't stop. If anything, it seemed to increase. I started finding trash, candy wrappers, soda cans littered near my garage. The grass along the edges of the driveway was wearing down from all the foot traffic. It felt like I was living next to a public park rather than in my own home. One Saturday morning, I was enjoying a cup of coffee on my porch when I saw a man walking his dog through my yard. The dog stopped to do its business right on my lawn. I couldn't stay silent. "Excuse me," I called out. "This is private property. Please don't walk your dog here." The man barely glanced at me. "Relax, it's just a shortcut. No harm done." Frustrated, I decided to talk to some of my neighbors. I approached Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who had lived on the street for decades. "Good morning, Mrs. Thompson. I was wondering if you knew why so many people are using my driveway as a shortcut." She gave me a sympathetic look. "Oh, dear. The previous owner didn't mind. Folks got used to it. But I can see how it's a problem for you." That explained a lot. The neighborhood had developed a habit, and breaking it would be challenging. I decided to start with a simple step. I bought a private property, no trespassing sign, and placed it at the entrance of my driveway. For a few days, it seemed to work. The traffic decreased, and I felt a glimmer of hope. But it didn't last. One evening, I caught a group of cyclists riding through. "Hey!" I shouted. "Didn't you see the sign?" One of them shrugged. "We thought it didn't apply to bikes." That was the last straw. It was clear that a sign wouldn't be enough. I needed a more effective solution. After researching my options, I decided to install a security gate at the entrance of my driveway. I hired a local contractor, and within a week, a sturdy metal gate was in place. It operated with a remote control, ensuring that only I could open and close it. The day after the installation, I was in my front yard when a group of neighbors approached, looking upset. Mr. Jenkins, a man known for his loud opinions, spoke up. "What's with the gate? You're trapping us in." I kept my voice calm. "No, I'm keeping you out. This is my property, and I have the right to control access to it." A woman added, "But we've always used this path. It's part of the community." I took a deep breath. I understand it's been convenient, but it's still private property. The constant traffic has been disruptive. I hope you can respect my decision. The group left, grumbling among themselves. I knew I had made the right choice, but I also knew I had upset some people. In the following days, I felt the tension in the neighborhood. Neighbors who used to wave now avoided eye contact. I even received an anonymous note in my mailbox that read, "You're ruining the community spirit." Despite the cold shoulders, I stood firm. The gate remained closed, and my property was finally free from unwanted trespassers. A week later, there was a knock on my door. It was Mrs. Thompson. "Samuel, may I come in?" "Of course, Mrs. Thompson. Please have a seat." She settled into the armchair, her expression kind. But tired. The kind of tired that comes from living somewhere a long time and watching it change too fast. She looked at me for a moment before speaking. "I've lived here for 38 years, she said softly. "And I've seen a lot of folks come and go. But never anything quite like this." She paused. People are upset, Samuel. Some more than they're letting on. I frowned. They're the ones who crossed the line. Literally. She nodded slowly. True. But some of them aren't just mad, they're angry enough to cause trouble. I just wanted to give you a heads up. I thanked her, but honestly, I wasn't that worried. What could they possibly do? The gate was locked. My property was protected. I thought it was over. I was wrong. The next morning, I walked out to find my mailbox smashed. Completely caved in. Not an accident either. It was blunt force, probably a bat or a crowbar. I checked my security cameras, but whoever did it stayed out of view. They were smart. I called the police. Filed a report. The officer was polite, but clearly had bigger things to worry about. A few days later, someone threw eggs at my garage door in the middle of the night. Then came the loud knocks on the gate at 2 a.m. Random, jarring, and gone before I could catch anyone. It didn't stop there. Trash started showing up again. Only this time it was deliberate. Bags of garbage dumped on my lawn. Used diapers. Rotten food. I had to keep cleaning it up just to avoid fines from the HOA. I installed more cameras. Floodlights. Nothing stopped it. They always stayed out of range or came in hoods. These weren't kids being careless anymore. This was calculated. This was revenge. One Saturday, I got an invitation stuck in my screen door. It was handwritten. Community meeting. 6 p.m. At the home of a neighbor I barely knew, Brett. I knew his face, never talked much. The kind of guy who smiled with his mouth but never his eyes. I showed up anyway. Curiosity got the better of me. There were about 20 people crammed into his backyard. Folding chairs, soda bottles, someone brought cookies like this was a church potluck. I was the last to arrive. When I stepped in, the talking stopped. All eyes turned to me. I felt like a deer walking into a den full of wolves. Brett stood up. Glad you could join us, Sam. Only my mom calls me Sam. I nodded. Thanks for the invite. He gestured to the group. We wanted to talk about the gate. Of course. It's my driveway, I said firmly. I think I've made my point clear. One woman raised her hand like this was a school board meeting. But it's always been open. We're used to it. That doesn't make it right, I said. It was never public property. Someone else muttered, power trip. I turned to them. You want to talk power trips? I've had my mailbox smashed. My garage egged. Garbage dumped in my yard. You can't prove that was anyone here. Brett cut in, voice smooth but sharp. Don't accuse your neighbors. Someone's doing it. And it didn't start until the gate went up. The air got tense. No one looked me in the eye. The silence was heavy. Then Brett said, Look, we just want you to consider removing it. Or at least leaving it open during the day. I laughed, bitter and short. You think after all this, I'm going to reward this behavior? Another man stood up. Short, stocky, red in the face. You're not the only one who lives here, you know. We have routines. Kids have school. We're a community. No, I said. You're a mob. I walked out. A week later, I came home to find spray paint across my garage. Selfish prick. That one was in full view of the camera. But the person wore a mask and hoodie and was in and out in seconds. Couldn't identify them. I reported it. Again. Then my dog Max got sick. I let him out into the backyard for 10 minutes like always. Came back and he was shaking, foaming at the mouth. Rushed him to the vet. They pumped his stomach. Rat poison. He survived. Barely. I was shaking with rage. The vet told me it looked intentional. Someone had thrown poisoned food over the fence. This wasn't about a shortcut anymore. This was war. I started doing some research, digging into property lines, local records, old community forums. Turns out, Brett had tried to buy the property behind mine 3 years ago to connect his yard to the main road. The deal fell through. The seller held out for more money, then died. The land was never sold. Brett's house is right next to mine. If my driveway stays closed, he's boxed in with only one road out. It all clicked. This wasn't about kids walking to school. It was about access. Money. Brett didn't care about community spirit. He wanted control. So I made a decision. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to go on offense. A week after Max recovered, I was starting to calm down. I'd installed even more cameras, reinforced the fence line, changed all my passwords, and even had a motion sensor alarm installed on the gate. I thought I had eyes everywhere. But what I didn't know was that someone was already 10 steps ahead of me. I got a letter in the mail. Not the usual angry anonymous one. This was official. It came from the county zoning office. According to the letter, there was a complaint against me. Someone had reported that my new security gate violated local code, that it obstructed emergency access, and might be in violation of property easement laws. I had 14 days to respond. My stomach dropped. I went back to the original home documents. No mention of any public easement. Nothing about shared access. The driveway was on my plot, clean and clear. But that didn't stop the county from investigating. And guess who the neighboring property representative was who filed the complaint? Yep, Brett. The next week, a county inspector showed up, clipboard in hand. Real straight-laced guy. "I'm here about the gate," he said. "Need to take some measurements and verify the complaint." I stood by as he walked the property, checking lines, muttering to himself. After 20 minutes, he said, "Well, looks like everything's fine for now. But if anyone can prove there's been a historically accepted right-of-way that could change things." "Like what?" I asked. "They could force you to remove the gate. Even open the driveway if it was used as a de facto easement for enough years." I was stunned. "Even if it's my property?" He shrugged. "It's rare, but it's happened." I went back through the neighborhood Facebook group, local news clippings, even found old Zillow listings. Every single one for homes around here called my driveway the access lane. People had been treating it like public space for years. The kicker? I found a listing from 10 years ago that flat out said, "Back gate shortcut through neighbor's lane provides quick access to Maple Drive." They'd been advertising my property as a selling point. That's when it hit me. They weren't just mad about the inconvenience. They were scared. My driveway was baked into the flow of this whole neighborhood. It was a shortcut, an escape route, a bragging right. And now it was gone. So I set my own. I called a lawyer. Not cheap, but worth every penny. We filed a cease and desist against Brett. We also filed a complaint about the spray paint vandalism with security footage and timestamps and sent copies to the HOA and county. Then I took it one step further. I bought the vacant lot behind my house, the one Brett tried to buy years ago. I paid above asking. That lot had a small, overgrown alley connecting it to Brett's backyard. I didn't just block him from my driveway. I owned the only other exit he ever wanted. He was boxed in. Permanently. He called me that night. I didn't know how he got my number, but I answered. "You really think you're clever," he said. His voice wasn't angry. It was cold. Calculating. "No," I said. "I know I am. You've made a lot of enemies. You made the mistake of thinking I'd roll over." Silence. "Then this isn't over." I hung up. 2 days later, I got another invitation. This time, a formal one from the HOA. Mandatory attendance. The meeting was in the clubhouse and the whole board was there. Brett sat at the end of the table like a king in a cheap crown. The president cleared his throat. "We've received multiple complaints. We're here to discuss your gate, Samuel." I nodded. I've responded to every complaint with legal documentation. My property line, the zoning approval, the lack of easement. It's all valid. One of the board members hesitated. "Even so, it's causing unrest." I pulled out a folder and dropped it on the table. Photos of the graffiti. The mailbox. Max's vet report. The legal complaints we filed. I'd like to know what the HOA is doing to protect me. Silence. I leaned in. "Because if you want to play favorites, we can do this in court." Brett's face turned red. The board backed down. They always do when you have receipts. A week later, I got a call from the county inspector again. He sounded amused. "Hey, just letting you know we received a second complaint. Someone tried to report your garage as an illegal unit. Claimed you were renting it out under the table." I blinked. "What?" He chuckled. "Yeah. We looked into it. Cameras show it's just storage. I think someone's fishing. Someone was desperate. And when people get desperate, they get reckless." About a month after that last HOA meeting, the harassment slowed down. The trash stopped. No more late-night banging on the gate. For a while, it felt like peace had finally returned. But I knew better. It was too quiet. One Friday night, around 11 p.m., I was in bed when my phone buzzed with a security alert. Motion detected. Backyard camera. I checked the live feed and saw a figure in a dark hoodie trying to cut the lock on my back fence. Not the gate. The back fence, the one by the vacant lot I just bought. I didn't think. I ran out the back door with my phone and a flashlight. Big mistake. I stepped outside and immediately got hit with something hard metal, I think. I dropped. The flashlight went spinning across the lawn. I heard footsteps fast, running away, and then tires peeling out somewhere in the distance. I was bleeding from the head. Dizzy. My vision was blurry. I blacked out before the paramedics got there. Woke up with a mild concussion and 10 stitches. The police took a full report. They reviewed all my camera footage. Luckily, the backyard camera had a good angle. The guy who hit me wore a mask, but his car? Not so lucky. A dark green Chevy Tahoe. Partial plate. They tracked it down. It was registered to Brett's nephew, a 19-year-old who lived in the next town over. They arrested him 2 days later. And guess what? Under questioning, the kid cracked. He admitted Brett planned the whole thing. Said Brett told him, "Just scare the guy. Show him he's not untouchable. He hadn't meant to hit me so hard. But he did. And it was on tape." Brett was charged with conspiracy and aggravated assault. He tried to deny it. Tried to say the kid was lying to save himself. But there were texts. Proof. His fingerprints were on a pair of wire cutters found at the scene. It all came crashing down. The neighborhood went nuts. Half the people were stunned. The other half, they acted like they knew and just didn't think it would go that far. The HOA was a mess. Brett was removed, of course. They tried to do it quietly, but it was all anyone talked about for weeks. The house across from mine went up for sale. Then another one. The shortcut was finally truly dead. I recovered. Physically, at least. But I wasn't the same. For a long time, I felt angry. I wanted revenge on everyone who looked the other way. Everyone who let it happen. Everyone who whispered behind my back while my dog was poisoned and my property vandalized. And I did get my revenge. Legally. Financially. I sued Brett. Won a settlement. Enough to pay for all the damage, the hospital bills, even the lawyer fees. Enough that he had to sell his house. But I also learned something. I made mistakes too. I underestimated how far people would go when they feel entitled to something. I thought I could fight fire with fire and stay clean. But in the middle of that war, I lost sleep. I stopped trusting people. I started seeing enemies everywhere. I became cold. Suspicious. Paranoid. And I don't like that version of me. Last week, I finally sold the house. Packed everything up. Said goodbye to Mrs. Thompson. Even she had tears in her eyes when I left. "Maybe you were the lesson this place needed," she said. "Shame it cost you so much." I didn't respond. Because I'm still not sure if I won. Or just survived.